As time goes on, there is more and more coming out about Meghan Markle. Things that are currently seemingly completely untrue. And we can look no further than her recent projects to see just how much she has projected herself and tried to present herself without having a lot of hard work. But today, when it comes to her own life, there's an example she's trying to set for young women. From her rise to fame to her podcast presentations of womanhood, something is very, very off. Today, I'm diving into the top lies that she is telling modern young women. And she's certainly not the only one doing this, but it's very, very clear that she's lying to young women when she talks about them on her podcast. So today we're diving into all these things and more. Welcome back to the Swish. Hey, it's Hannah. So good to be back with you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, where together we celebrate and explore classical femininity and trends, traditions, and lifestyles for an elegant and inspired life. Don't forget to check out the Swish magazine. We have our brand new edition coming out this June in just a couple weeks. And you can also purchase and get up to speed on the latest edition of the Swish magazine, the spring edition, in the link here on YouTube. You can actually scroll down just a little bit and see it right there. So you can click right there and purchase and read about it. So I hope you'll join me in this great new media platform that we've created for women who want to celebrate the classics together and think deeply about these topics. I actually took some time and started a whole series about Meghan Markle's podcast, but I only made it in about 3 episodes before I truly just could not take it anymore. So somewhere in the depths of the archives of my hard drive, I have all kinds of footage about that podcast, but it truly got to the point where it was just boring. Like, there was the same problems over and over and over again. So by episode 3, it was just not engaging anymore. And I truly want to provide you with content that is actually thought-provoking and something that you can think about after you're done watching the videos. So I'm not going to publish those, but as I continue to work on that series, I was thinking about how a lot of them came back to some central themes that Meghan didn't really articulate when setting out to do the podcast. And they aren't themes that are actually helpful to anyone. And they highlight a broader conversation about the lies that young women like myself are being told by women in positions of power like Meghan Markle. So I thought, instead of diving into all the multiple times that Meghan talked about her own bullying or her own stories, or made all the interviews all about herself, I will just say she is not a great interviewer. She does much better being interviewed because she can talk about herself. But there were things that came out time and time again. So I really have highlighted 5 lies that I think that she is telling about womanhood, about women in business, about her own experience, that are really not helpful and I think need to be highlighted. So through her new podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, she's supposed to be talking to women like me, women who are ambitious, who are thoughtful. She talks about how they are ready to take their little ideas to big dreams. But after listening really closely, I know that she's not just giving bad advice, she's reinforcing some really dangerous lies. So the first one that she talked about in every single episode was that self-love is strategy. Now, it's really important, of course, that we love who we are, who we were created to be, have a calling in our life. I 100% agree with that. But every single episode of this podcast came back to one foundational argument from Meghan, and that was that building a business begins with loving yourself first, and that energy is everything. She talks about how she has to do a happy dance and throw her ideas to the wind, which I genuinely think must be what happened here with As Ever, if you didn't watch my last video. But she just talks about how the feeling of being a part of something is really all that matters, and that detaching from the outcome is what empowers you. And that could not be further from the truth when you talk about, first of all, what it's like to build a business, but also what it's like to embrace womanhood. It's not just about the cutesy, happy little self-love party dance things, but engaging with really difficult situations, difficult challenges when it comes to building a business or facing what happens in your life. She talks about spiraling over little things like packaging. She told that story that she told at the Time 100 event about her having a really difficult time trying to decide how to package her jams and how she sat at her kitchen table and she tried to figure it out for a really long time. She talks about that quote that I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong, put it in the comments down below, about how I won't spend 5 minutes on something that won't matter in 5 years. I believe that was a quote from her ex-husband, Trevor, and she referenced that in a very old interview. Let me know if I'm wrong down below. But what this really highlights is this focus and obsession with appearance over execution. And as a young woman who is, struggling with trying to not be on social media as much, trying to not let these influences of appearance, be it AI, Photoshop, Botox, all these things, those things are not what matters in the long run. And it's not just about self-love that is going to get you where you need to go. Her drop shipping business and endless conversations about chaos and energy and just starting with how you're feeling and having that be the answer to all of her questions about business building on this podcast. The truth is that self-love is not a business plan. It's not something that is going to help you take action. Strategy, accountability for the actions that you take, and the results of those actions are what really, really matters. Confidence without actually having experience, without being competent, is just performative. And we know that that's how Meghan is after all. The second lie that we've talked about quite a bit on this channel is that if you're a victim, you are powerful. I cannot reinforce enough how much on this podcast she circled back to her own struggles of being bullied, how she felt like she was in middle school again, how her guests reinforced this as well. She's just talking to her own echo chamber of people who know that she has been under the spotlight and not handled it well. But they all just kind of commiserate together about how bullied they are. And these moments for her have become anchors for inspiration. The problem with that is that she turns every single episode into a memoir of her resentment. She gets so tied up in how horribly she's been treating that has become her identity. And unfortunately, so many young women today have taken on this exact same approach. That because something has not gone their way, something has been a hard time for them, that suddenly is the only identity that they have, and that is a place to remain. And obviously, there's so many horrible things that can happen in life, but my hope is that Meghan would encourage young women to go beyond those things, to not just sit around and think about how horrible those things are, and that they are an inspiration for something greater. But you are the center of your own story, and it's not a place to remain when you have some bad luck, when something is not going your way. So a lot of this podcast became entrepreneurship tied with some kind of therapeutic venting for her, which is just not fun to listen to. But victimhood is not a qualification for getting where you need to go. And that's the lesson that she seemed to be perpetuating to her listeners. Instead, it's resilience. And I wish that she had framed this for young women to work towards being resilient, to not just think about what they've been through and be inspired by it, which is somewhat true, but resilience is a quiet kind of strength. Oftentimes, the strongest women that I've known have not spoken all the time about their struggles. They carry that with them. They work through it, but they're resilient. Meghan's problem is she just keeps coming back to it over and over and over again, and it's part of her identity. Unfortunately, that's how many young women are today. They believed this lie that that is their identity. But it's really important to go far beyond that. I think of Princess Catherine with this. She has gone through so many struggles, from cancer to a hard shakedown with the media, really difficult things. But she has persevered, she's been resilient, and it's not a part of her identity first and foremost. Lie number 3 that she has been really pushing through every single one of these episodes is that women can have it all if we change the rules for us. And reminder, Meghan has a full-time nanny. She has a $14 million mansion. She has millions of dollars, supposedly, to invest in random businesses. She can just have hobbies on the side to try to make her money. This is very different than what most women are dealing with. And she just talks about the problems without offering real solutions. Instead of honoring the beauty of seasons of womanhood, she really focuses on doing it all at once and not recognizing that there are rhythms to womanhood. And I wish that young women could see that there are different times that they can do everything, just maybe not all at once. And so Meghan is just, again, criticizing what it's like to be a woman in business without offering some real solutions or recognizing the very real reality of the rhythms of life and how that isn't actually a reality for every woman. So yes, women are different than men. We need different situations when it comes to business. We need different things that are going to be helping us thrive. But that doesn't mean that we have to exactly mimic what men are doing. We should celebrate the beauty of womanhood and how we're different instead of just stacking us up exactly against men, complaining that the system is broken, and then not offering any solutions as to how to fix it, as Meghan has done here. Classical femininity thrives when women embrace these rhythms of life and their responsibility, not resentment towards the systems that are concerning, as Meghan has done in this podcast. Now, one thing that I will resent is germs. You may know why I'm saying that, but that's because I recently learned that there are, I believe it was billions of germs just sitting on your hands if you don't clean your jewelry. Oh my goodness. There are so many times that you may wash your hands, but if you are not taking these pieces and scrubbing them and cleaning them the way you need to, you are creating a germ house on your hands that you could be getting others or yourself sick with. So I think that that can be resolved without having to pay tons and tons of money or having to ruin your jewelry. Instead, I wanted to share with you this beautiful companion that sits on my bathroom counter, the Ana Lucia Jewelry Cleaner. How beautiful is this? But all you have to do is just take the lid off. Let me take my ring off here. Take a little squirt of the Ana Lucia Cleaner. Very, very beautiful, by the way. Just do a little squirt. You can tell I've used this a lot. I truly use this all the time. But you just scrub it on here. And then I take my handy-dandy little rag. You can see all the dirt that it's gotten off of my jewelry in recent days. And you just wipe it down. And look how sparkly. Not only is it clean, y'all, it's beautifully sparkly. Now, recently I learned that not only does this help with jewels, gemstones, stones, any type of jewel that you have. So this was my great-grandmother's. I recently moved and I found this bowl and I was like, man, this is kind of tainted. How do I fix this? Well, I realized that I could take the Ana Lucia cleaner, give a little spray. Let me see if you can see this on here. You can see some of the places that I've done that. Let me try it right here. And then spray it on here. Take my handy dandy little brush and you see it? There we go. Oh my goodness. Are you seeing that? Look at that. It's already in just a couple strokes. Can you see that? So much shinier. So I'm going to do that with the whole thing, but this stuff is powerful, powerful, and it's completely non-toxic. A lot of the jewelry cleaners that I used to use had horrible chemicals in them. You don't want that sitting on your skin, no more than the horrible germs that get on your jewelry. So make sure to go click the link in the description. You can order the Ana Lucia jewelry cleaner today and get 20% off with code SWISH20. So click below. I'd love for you to try this. It just smells amazing. It makes your jewelry so sparkly, and you are going to want to give this to your friends who are getting married, your friends who get new pieces of jewelry. Truly, it's become a staple in my bathroom. The fourth lie that Meghan Markle is telling is that inspiration equals intimacy. And here's what I mean. Meghan, instead of offering insights into how to build these businesses, or how to build her own business for that matter, focuses on little things like how and where she met the guests. Every single episode, I believe there's a formula, starts with how she met the guest, how the guest loves her, how they felt so warm when they first met Meghan and Harry, how Meghan is nothing like the press says, and how she and the guests have bonded over some kind of heartbreaking, traumatic situation for the most part, and how strong Meghan is for surviving this, which is sometimes very similar to the stories of her guests. Again, she kind of interjects herself here. The struggle is that there is no frameworks, no data, no strategies around this podcast and how to actually build a business. It's just endless storytelling. It feels like cliche TED Talks. And by the way, you actually can pay more money. I don't know that anybody's talked about this. You can actually pay more money to Limonada Media to get bonus content. I didn't do that because I didn't want to get any more of this than I had to. But what it really highlights for me is that there's already this stereotype that women just want to gab, that women don't have the emotional or the intellectual integrity to be able to have these tough conversations or be given the real tools to have really successful, engaging businesses. And I think that's such a lie that Meghan is actually telling without realizing it, that women don't need more emotional over-identification. We don't need to just connect with emotions. We need clarity. Yes, that's how women have a beautiful contribution to the world in the way that we emotionally relate to people. But learning how to build something takes so much more than just a wine lunch, like Meghan talks about that she has with her friends, or writing letters to yourself, as she talks about doing. So that is a real lie that I hope that women don't fall into who are listening to this, that they just need to believe in themselves and that they just need to have a little wine date and that they need to emotionally lean into these things and they're going to build a business. It's really unfortunate to me that a lot of people think that that's all that women can take, but we're thoughtful. We know a lot more than that. Finally, the fifth lie is that being a woman in business just means that you are endlessly celebrated and not challenged. Last year, I did a video about International Women's Day, and that was kind of inspired by Meghan Markle's talk at International Women's Day, where she was on that panel with Brooke Shields at the, was it the Southwest, Sirius XM? Maybe not. Anyway, she was on a panel talking about how success is applauded for women and how we need to be highlighting more women in business. But Meghan in this podcast often says that any critique that women have is some sort of bullying. She doesn't outright say that, but that is what's inferred by her talking about the criticisms that people have of her and her business. And that simply because you're a woman in business, simply because you're a woman doing something, you should be applauded and praised. And it doesn't matter what actually you've done or the proof that's there. And that the press should protect her simply because she is who she is. She is positioning herself and her guests and her friends as beyond criticism, that simply because we are women, we shouldn't be able to take or shouldn't have to listen to any type of criticism. And if you look at her track record, obviously there's a lot to criticize there. Criticism is a really important element when it comes to building something successful. When you have constructive criticism, that is actually one of your greatest assets. But Meghan refuses to believe that any type of criticism is helpful. And because of this, we're left with so many self-help cliches that we just cannot get away from with her. So it's really important that young women know that you cannot grow as a person in your business without honest feedback, without people that you love and trust giving you guidance as to how things can get better, but how you are coming across. So this idea that simply because women are women, we just need to accept everything about them and just applaud every single action. Yes, let's celebrate things, but let's also provide helpful, honest feedback from those that we love and trust to really get us where we're going. The running around excitement, just endlessly celebrating women for women's sake is not actually helpful. And I wish that women would recognize that all criticism is not bad criticism. Sometimes it's helpful to just take something, think about it, and then just let it go. So self-awareness without self-discipline is just self-absorption. And Meghan Markle is a perfect example of that. Meghan Markle wants to be the face of female entrepreneurship, one of the many things she wants. But if she's actually going to be speaking to women about how to be a woman in business, then she needs to really recognize these lies that she's telling without maybe even realizing it. Maybe it's just a part of her worldview. But she needs to understand that femininity is not just fragile, defensive, and self-focused. There is so much more to that than being a woman in business. And if you are a woman who is trying to grow a business, who's trying to chase a dream, this type of content is not helpful for you. And I don't think that it's helpful for any type of woman if you're building a business or not. You deserve so much more than wine chats and word salad from Meghan Markle. You deserve to really be a woman who has honest feedback, who honestly gets to where she's going and has the discipline and the rigor to get there. So let's raise our standards for what it means to have a business as a woman and to embrace womanhood in the modern age. We don't need these types of lies that are being pushed on us. And if you believe in classical femininity, in clear thinking, in thoughtful discussions, then I really hope that you will continue to follow along here, that you'll deep dive into what we've been talking about here on this channel. I talk a lot about Meghan Markle, and I've gotten criticism for that, but I do think that she is a prime example of what's going on culturally and the negative message that's been given to young women today. So make sure to hit the like and the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.